Hi, I'm Andre Harrison and welcome to the first episode of Dre TV, your brand new motorsport show looking at some race news, reviews, previews, community segments and more for Formula 1 and MotoGP for this upcoming season. Consider this a new home you like for my race reviews, for previews, anything that's considering features. I'm all bundling it in together into this one tight Dre TV package. Hope you like the suit. I'm sure the CM Punk fans will approve. Anywho, on this first episode, we're going to be talking about obviously the Formula 1 Australian Grand Prix of their season kicking off in just 6 days' time in Australia. We'll be looking at my first power rankings list for that, so where I determine who I think is on the top of the pile team-wise going into the first race, coming off the back of a very interesting and newsworthy testing period, as well as my top 5 title contenders for the upcoming 2014 season. I hope you guys look forward to the show. Oh, and be sure to watch all the way to the very end, because there's a way for you, the humble YouTuber, to be featured on this show as well. But first of all, here is my top 11 power rankings. The first list going into this Australian Grand Prix, we'll be seeing these before and after every Grand Prix, and we'll keep a running track of this as the season goes on. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Okay, just before we start, here's a quick disclaimer. These power rankings are based loosely off of the testing, the pre-season, and a little bit to do with the 2013 season that's just gone by. This is not an exact science, this is just one man's opinion, so do bear that into account before I don't put your favourite team in the top 4, okay? So don't get mad, this is just my opinion and this is just the theory I'm basing it off of. Obviously, once the season gets underway, we'll know a lot more about the shape of the field and how things are at in terms of pace, overall, and where the rest of the teams are at. This is speculation. Just bear that in mind before you start sending hate in the comments. Ready? Hope you enjoy it. Okay, so as the season kicks off in Australia this weekend, here's my F1 power rankings for episode 1 of Dre TV. At the bottom of the pile at number 11, it's Marussia. In their battle for 10th with rivals Caterham, Marussia have had by far the patchier pre-season, struggling in testing as they were 10th on sheer mileage and were stone dead last after the first Bahrain test. A difficult return to the drawing board had to have been imminent heading into Melbourne. At 10th, it's Caterham. Have yet to convince anyone for their overall pace, but they did manage to prove that Renault engines can be reliable at times rather than this. But still, racking up over 3,000 kilometres, 7th on the list, is an impressive feat for the little team that could, and with their best driver lineup to date in the helm already, they're firm favourites to beat rival team Marussia. Next up at number 9, it's Lotus. By far the worst pre-season of any team so far. Kimi Räikkönen gone, team badly in debt, social media managers fired, and the least mileage of any team in testing after upgrades for the second Bahrain of discontent as they play catch-up. In 8th is Toro Rosso, a small drop from their 2013 finishing position. They have early struggles but have taken positive steps to improve as testing has gone on. Still a bit behind their rivals in front of them still, so we'll have to see how they progress in Melbourne. In 7th, and the biggest surprise faller, it's Red Bull Racing. The most shocking and surprisingly awful pre-season from the quadruple champions. 9th in overall mileage clocked, suffering technical breakdown after breakdown, fixing one problem with another appearing in its place. They seemed more stable right at the end, but this stands to be the team's biggest challenge since the rise of the Vettel-Webber combination. Can Adrian Newey conjure another Webber out of the hat? Their potential is what keeps them this generously high. Up into the middle spot and in P6 is Sauber, the definition of a midfield team spinning its wheels. Doing solid but not really doing anything to justify a spot higher on the list. They've not had any major faults but have been surprisingly quiet the whole way through. Heck, maybe no news is good news in a camp that had a lot of negative press in recent memory. Into the top 5 and in 5th is Force India, the place they so desperately crave. Force India managed to top a few timing sheets and were solid all the way through testing, and with their best driver lineup ever clicking along nicely, the future's bright and quite possibly orange with Vijay Mallya and crew. But can they stay there? In 4th place is McLaren. The rebuild seems to be winding along quite nicely for the Woking-based unit with Ron Dennis back at the helm. There's still question marks over Kevin Magnussen, but he seems to have fitted in quite nicely with his new wheels, and despite showing up late in Jerez, they still ended up 4th overall in testing mileage. Say what you will about McLaren, They are always in or around the top and look in good shape to continue that late 2013 pace forward through to 2014. Into the top 3, and in third it's Williams, the ultimate dark horse and the other major surprise of pre-season testing. Williams have built their entire car emphasis around reliability and longer, more efficient running. And in this era of technological uncertainty in Formula 1 with the new regulations, the morale in camp for Williams must be high as it has been for years. Felipe Massa looks happy and hungry. The team as a whole were less than 100 kilometers off the top in total mileage and topped several timing sheets along the way as well. If Williams can go the distance, which they look very confident in doing so, don't rule out an early podium for the biggest improving team in the field. On the front row and in second, it's Ferrari. The Manchester United of Formula 1, they are always contenders. They have the strongest driver lineup in the field right now, even if there are doubts whether they can coexist or not. Despite that, and the occasional spin from returning Iceman Kimi Räikkönen, Ferrari were no doubt the best of the runners in the field not on Mercedes power, third in overall mileage and consistent throughout. And with Alonso and Kimi at the top, it'll take a lot for them not to be in the top 3 come season's end. And on pole position right now, it has to be Mercedes. Confidence is high in camp. Hamilton and Rosberg are right at the top for title favourites. The car on the whole has been excellent. Mercedes hit the ground running early on and haven't looked back since. First on several timing sheets, running race and quali simulations already, and leading the entire field with nearly 5,000 kilometres of total testing across the 12 days. If you had to have someone at the top at this early stage, it has to be Mercedes, and it's not even close. They are without doubt the favourites headed into Australia.
Hope you guys enjoyed that list, and let me know what you guys thought as well. Have you got your own order? Do you think I've ranked the team too high, too low? Let me know. I'd love to hear your take on these things as always. Now for the next part, here is my top 5 championship contenders going into what's bound to be a very interesting and arguably the most competitive Formula 1 season we've had in years.
At number 5 and 4 are the 2 Ferrari drivers, Kimi Räikkönen and Fernando Alonso respectively. As 2 perennial members of Dre's Fantastic Four, they're automatically title contenders by default, especially Fernando, who's had more experience of getting the best out of inferior machinery in his F1 career. I think he's a nudge ahead of Kimi at this point in their respective careers. The reason they're both 5 and 4, however, is because their greatest enemies and threats to their title pushes are, quite frankly, each other. Both drivers have made careers for themselves off of their incredible consistency, and if they're both consistently near or around the top, something Alonso has done extremely well in his career, there's a chance they can end up taking points off each other in the long run, and as a result, harm both their chances of winning a world championship individually. As I've said before, Ferrari brought in Räikkönen as a clear attempt to win their first Constructors' title in 6 years, even if it compromises themselves as individuals. In the 3 position, I have Sebastian Vettel. I know some of you are going to throw the bias card at me again, but you have to consider his team here. This is Red Bull Racing, 4 times consecutive Constructors' champions and the best developing team on the grid. No driver delivers as good feedback as Seb does, and if RBR resolve their issues, there's every chance Seb can bounce back and try to defend that title of his. Red Bull have overcome every single rule change in the book since the double diffuser standard was set by Brawn GP in 2009. So is there any reason to stop believing that now? Doubt Adrian Newey and the elite Sebastian Vettel at your peril. No surprise though, I have the 2 Mercedes drivers at the top in the 2 and 1 position. But I actually have Lewis Hamilton at 2 and Nico Rosberg at 1, which may surprise a few people. I think these 2 are much, much closer than many people give them credit for. They both have strengths in different areas, but I think Nico's strengths are better suited for the changed landscape Formula 1 is now. Nico Rosberg is incredibly smart, has a degree in engineering, and shares a very strong trait with another blonde-haired German on the grid. He gives incredibly good feedback in terms of getting the best out of his machinery, and as 2013 showed, he is more than a match for Lewis over the course of a 19-race season. And I think it's that smart and ability to adapt to change which I think makes him the #1 contender to Sebastian Vettel's multi-21 encrusted throne. Now, don't get me wrong, Lewis has an excellent chance too. He's a natural talent, and as I said during my Fantastic Four episode based on him, he's probably the fastest guy in the field for raw pace. sometimes that can just be enough, and I think at their best, I think Hamilton beats out Rosberg one-on-one 9 times out of 10. But whether that happens consistently over 19 races, who knows? It's a 1A and 1B situation to me, if you ask me. But for me, Nico by a whisker is my candidate for world champion. Incredibly smart, able to adapt, and he started in the strongest car. But will Nico's smarts prevail over Lewis's talent? Now there's a question.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that segment too. Again, I'd love to hear you guys take on the situation. Who do you have as your title favourite going into this season? I'd love to hear your opinions as always. Just before I go, I want to also say, if you are a Formula 1 motorsport YouTuber, you focus on either Formula 1 or MotoGP, and you want a segment or feature in Dre TV in the future, all you got to do is make a package, leave it as an unlisted video, and just send it my way. It can be on Facebook, it can be on Twitter, it can be via a YouTube message, it can be via Google Mail. You can even email the show at dharrisonanalysis@gmail.com. I'll even put the email in the description there for you if it helps. But if you're a Formula 1 YouTuber, a MotoGP YouTuber, and you want something relevant that as a feature piece as you want in this show, and to get it out there to an audience of several hundreds, you can have it featured on the show. Just let me know, and let me know what you're going to do, and we can talk about a possible plan to have you featured on the show in the future. I hope you guys have enjoyed the first episode of Dre TV. Hopefully this will only get better as things go on. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear you try and find ways to make the show better. I'm open to suggestions, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did putting it together. I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.